During the time of slavery, slaves communicated with each other through storytelling and singing. Storytelling was one of the ways that slaves teach each other morals and lessons. Storytelling told stories and history of what slaves went through. Even though slaves were told not to communicate with each other, they could not help it because it was a way and a tradition that was passed down for many, many years. Storytelling gave them a way to look towards freedom. Singing songs was a way to keep and stay in touch with each other through the African culture. Singing caused time to pass by while working hard labor. Within the slave singing, they could talk to each other through songs like a code. Talking and demonstrating was a way for a slave to pass down history. Slaves could not read or write. By talking, it was a way for them to pass down information. Slaves always talked to each other to find out information from the past to the future. Even though slaves could not explain themselves about a certain task that they could demonstrate, but what they learned, they could understand through singing and passing down knowledge and information. Slaves started to become able to read and write. They started to record their history. Their experiences throughout were put in slave narratives. The early 1800s, African Americans began to learn how to read and write. Those who could read and write started to teach each other as well as read information on what white people were writing in newspapers and letters so that they could know what was going on. Samuel Cornish and John B. Rushworm were the first African Americans to have a published newspaper called the Freedom Journal. The journal circulated through 11 states. The newspaper gave you information on local news and national news. The paper also informed African Americans about lynching, discrimination, disclaiming slavery, and other injustices. There were also a list of birth, deaths, and marriages that were recorded in the Freedom Journal. In the early 1900s, radio soon became popular. Radio was a way for African Americans to learn about news without having to read the paper. Only a few African Americans owned radios, but those who did share that information with those in the community that they could. African Americans reporters gave their side to the story to let other African Americans know how they were affected. Here in Bethesda, Maryland, we're at Comcast Newsmaker Sportsnet. Sunday Macklin, a sophomore at the Virginia State University, majoring in social work. Sunday Macklin is actually doing a documentary on African Americans in media. Kelly Lynn, a world-known journalist who actually started in media through BET, Black Entertainment. She's worked there for several years and now she is working with Comcast Newsmakers and she also works with CNN Headline News.
My name is Sunday Macklin and I'll be interviewing Kelly Lynn at Comcast. Hi Kelly, how are you today?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Great. I wanted to know about your views on blacks in media. How did you get started in media?
All right, well, first of all, it was always a dream of mine to work in television, and I identified some abilities that I had at an early age. I always read well. I was the kid in class who read to the class, and I did well in English, so I was a good writer and I was a good reader, and I just thought, oh, I could be a news anchor. And so I went to Howard University, majored in broadcast journalism, had some wonderful internships at Black Entertainment Television, at ABC News, and then I was able to go down and get my first job as a weekend news anchor in Meridian, Mississippi, worked there for a year, came up, did reporting at News Channel 8 for 3 years, and then spent many, many more years at the CBS affiliate in Baltimore. And then I had a couple children, took a break, stepped down from my position. I was the noon anchor and the medical reporter at the CBS affiliate, and began freelancing, and that's how I wound up at Comcast. So I host this wonderful show called Newsmakers, where I get a chance to talk to really influential decision makers, politicians, corporate leaders, nonprofit leaders about various activities and developments that are happening in the community.
Okay, as a black woman, how do you feel that more African Americans can be involved in media?
You know, and I remember hearing this when I was in school, and it was really about ownership. It was really not so much focusing on being in front of the camera, but the importance of really understanding how the business works behind the scenes. Easier said than done, though. You know, it takes capital to buy stations, et cetera. But the problem with a lack of African Americans in mainstream media is that we don't hold the leadership positions, and so we don't get hired as easily. The National Association of Black Journalists was established to help deal with that and to help create more opportunities. We are seeing changes, though. You'll see that even on the network level, they're putting people in minority recruitment positions so that their job is to go out and not just hire African Americans, but to hire people from diverse backgrounds in general and put them in newsrooms.
Okay, what advice would you give young Black African American females, women, to get involved in media or how to chase their career goals?
Well, I think that more than ever before, networking becomes really important. And the way that I was able to do that was through internships. And that was volunteering my time at a news agency and really showing them who I was so they knew that I was reliable. They knew that I was capable. And so once the relationship is created, then when something opens up, then they can call on you to come in and step into that position.
Okay. As a news anchor now, do you give back to the community? Do you do volunteer work now?
It's very much a part of the job. People are always asking you to come out and speak or to speak to different groups, to do interviews with students, you know, whatever it is. It's just a part of what we do. And so when you accept a position as a news reporter or a news anchor, you know that that is just going to go along with it.
Okay, that's wonderful. What, where do you see media going in the future?
I think that we're changing and we're evolving in positive ways. Certainly the internet has played a very big role in all of that. It's changing the way news is covered. Everything's so much faster now. You know, information, because people don't wait till 5 o'clock when they get home to find out what happened today. They literally can tap into it. So many various sources. It's made covering the news much more competitive. It's important that people get information quicker to give it to the public faster. And so, you know, in many ways, we have more options in the way that we communicate news and information, but what becomes more important is accuracy, and that even though we're passing this along, have we had enough time to really gather our facts, are we really ready to go on with information? And then you have a lot of bloggers and different sources out there. Sometimes at my last station, there were actual instances where producers wrote stories that they took as fact that were not factual. And so you got to really double check your sources, and that's because, you know, bloggers may be out writing about things that maybe didn't happen. And so, I mean, producers found themselves in that trap twice on 2 different occasions. So it really makes it more important than ever before that you're getting your information from reliable sources.
Well, thank you, Kelly, for this interview today.
You are very welcome.
Thank you.
As you can see, the interview was a major success. Sunday has completed her documentary on African Americans in